And this is where I always tell people, look, follow the money.
It requires effort. It requires engagement, true engagement. You got to say yes. Some way, somehow, say yes.
That's where the innovation comes. We cannot be complacent.
Welcome everyone to episode 23 of Move.Crush.count. This is a podcast that is sponsored by J&L Marketing. I am your host, Scott Joseph, and with us today is value proposition expert Bill Howard. He's the CEO and founder of Fastline Media Group. He's graciously agreed to share his knowledge and experience with us. So let's dive right in and we'll welcome Bill.
You're listening to Move Crush Count, hosted by Scott Joseph.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Move Crush Count. This is a podcast sponsored by J&L Marketing. I am your host, Scott Joseph, and joining me today is, I would call him a value proposition expert, Bill Howard from Fastline Media Group. He's the CEO and founder, and a few other companies in there that we'll talk about and we'll plug for you as well. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
appreciate that, Scott.
So Bill has been doing this a long time. And what I like about this is,
40 plus.
Yeah, 40 plus years.
Yeah.
And you've got a great story. You've built an incredible business through offering superior value. And so I want to get into some of that. But what I like about it is a lot of this has had to change over the years. So,
Yes.
Let's jump right in and kind of get going on this. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right.
Ironically, one of our connections early on when you came out to our offices was in finding out that your background was from the dealer standpoint. So my career started off with in automotive. So I was with a company called Reynolds and Reynolds, which is still out there today.
They are.
And they were a great teacher. I sold the computer systems to automotive dealers, both on the parts and the accounting. And as it so happened, family business was in publishing. I got to a point where it was like, all right, I'm either going to go in the family business or my career is going to stay in the computers. And so I made that shift to go into the family business, which lasted about 2.5 years until I got the bug to be on my own.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that are out there, you never know when that bug is going to be put in your ear. Mine was by a customer that really took me under his wing and helped me see the challenges of being in family businesses.
So explain, so people, what exactly are you, so the audience understands, what exactly do you do now?
What we do
Explain
is,
Fastline.
we connect buyers to sellers, okay? I mean, that's the simplest thing. But even in going back when we first started, it was for the heavy duty truck industry. Okay. So our foundation was anybody that was, if you bought a vehicle that had a 16,000 GVW and above, we weren't for the pickup trucks. It was all work trucks over the road. And so we ended up finding out that this was a very specialized marketplace. Mm-hmm. And so one of the keys that we really kind of learned is the more focused that you can be when you're in marketing, the better your advantages that you can then take out to others. So we began with an idea of like saying, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to figure out, you got to get a good list. So we had to do some research and came to find out that, we were able to get to the, back then, the actual Bureau of Motor Vehicles. Yep. And the good old days. The good old days when they didn't have all the privacy laws and going on. And you could buy the list of everybody that had a truck registered 26,000 GVW and above, we'll say. So that's what we did. And then we went around, and so the secret was it's volume. So, we set a price that had a really low CPM. Yep. Literally I think some of our first brochures probably were talking about, there's 13,000 heavy duty truck owners in this state, and you can reach every one of them for 3 cents.
So just so we're clear, so the people that are listening or eventually watching, so you're selling to these heavy duty trucks. Yeah. You said that you're connecting buyers to sellers,
right? Or
sellers to buyers, probably in both directions. So what exactly, walk us through in the early days of Fastline, what were they doing exactly? Because you're talking about list, so...
Yes. Well, the biggest difference that we really brought to the table was the idea of photos. All right? Okay. You know, and I mean, we're going back to like 1978. So, you know, at that timeline, about the only thing that anybody was doing would be in print was classified ads.
Right.
You know, there wasn't Auto Traders or those were just kind of starting up. So our real key was we went out and said, you know, you got to show them. And so all of our sales reps, our moniker was they were walking in with a 35 millimeter camera around their neck. Yeah. You know, so when they walked in, they knew we're ready to do business. Those were some of the things. So I think that was one of the things we learned is, you know, make sure that your customer knows what you're there for.
What's the objective?
The objective, they know, and we got it out very quickly that our deal was to connect to their potential buyer. So we were actually so transparent. We'd walk in and show them the list and said, "Are these the people you'd want to reach?" And they would go, "Yeah." And we said, "That's who we mail to."
So you're doing direct mail with catalogs and pictures and things such as that. You had said earlier that the idea came to you from one of your clients. So this was one of the clients when you were with publishing? With the publishing? With your relatives?
Yes.
Your family?
Yes.
All right, so there's a heavy-duty truck?
We had started a heavy-duty truck publication up in Indiana, and this was a client of mine, actually one of my biggest clients and for our company. And, you know, he's the one that kind of opened my eyes about some of the challenges of dealing in family businesses. So it's my grandfather that started it, my dad, 2 uncles were in it, and, you know, and he kind of said, you know, do you understand some of the challenges you're going to face? Because I was pretty young. I was in my 20s, you know, and I came to realize that. And 2.5 years with the family, I then ventured on my own and moved down here to Kentucky.
All right.
And started the exact same product, but just for the state of Kentucky.
Right, and then you found that this niche as well.
Yes.
It sounds like the publishing probably, was that in multiple verticals?
It was, we actually, and to start off with, we stayed totally focused over on the truck side.
Okay.
So we went from Kentucky, and then I got a letter from a dealer in Tennessee and said, hey, I think you ought to do one down here. And that started it. So as what many of you out there may have done, it might have been a friend, it might have been mine happened to be my roommate from college, and contacted him and said, hey, how would you like to get involved, you know, with this business? And from there, he came down and did the Tennessee, and then we went to Georgia, then we went to Florida, then we went to Alabama, Mississippi, and we started growing, and that was really one of our key things. Yeah,
it's so funny you say that. Yeah. So the L and J&L was my former roommate as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So like Neil say, I've encouraged my son to go to college.
So
you know, you never tell you're going to meet there.
I find it interesting. A couple things you said here that should resonate with the business leaders and the entrepreneurs, and that is find the niche. So here you find this market, in this case, heavy duty trucks, and then eventually the ag, with all the equipment. Yeah. And you found a product. It doesn't sound, at least back then, I'm not saying it wasn't, everything is competitive, but you found this niche of no one's really doing this. You found your blue ocean of in a decent sized market that says, I can go here and reduce competition, and I think I've got an idea everybody's, what gave you the idea to do that? And I think this is the second point you made. You listened to a customer, for one.
Yeah, you know, we saw the success. I mean, you know, it was, you know, I got to tell you, within 6 months, I'd fallen in love with the product. I found that I just had a niche for marketing, you know, and going out and having the conversations. Probably one of, you know, and this is why I started off with about the idea with rental to rentals, that I learned dealerships from inside out, okay? Everybody else in the marketing is learning them from the outside in. So I was like in there, so I mentioned absorption rate, all right? So I knew about absorption rate. Nobody in advertising knew about absorption rate. Nobody in marketing had an understanding about that. Nobody, you know, I would address topics that anybody else in marketing wouldn't. So that was really one of the key niches in the early stages, was having an inside path into it. So, you know, if somebody's out there and you take a look at it, you're serving an industry, you know, sometimes that industry you may be able to do other things for. You know, I was all in the automotive, but truck is a mirror of automotive.
I was going to ask you, what did you take and see that was being done in automotive and be like, I can take, that is so important, because if you're an entrepreneur or any type of business leader, there are so many good ideas. We're all looking for the next great idea.
Yes.
And usually what happens is some of us get tunnel vision and we stay in our industry instead of keeping our eyes wide open. And as we see a good process or great customer service or a certain way that someone's marketing or whatever else, hey, that's working well in this industry.
Yes.
Can I apply that here?
It is dead on. I mean, because the element is there was some guy up in Michigan that had come up with that idea of this truck publication solely focused, and my family's business saw it, and they ended up going, hey, we're going to go do it down here. Fortunately, that guy wasn't ambitious, so he just stayed in his world and never left it. And then we were able to take it into other areas. As I was growing into the through the South, the family business growing in other parts of the country, which actually, as it turned out, led to my getting involved in the agriculture, because once again, it is of a similar nature. I could literally walk into an ag dealer and look at their financial statement, read it, because they all are based on automotive.
Yeah.
It's all a manufacturer dealer network. So when I have ventured out of that, which I have done and failed, that I learned that we're really good business to business. So I think that was really another part of our niche, is that we really got into having an understanding about a business that was selling to a business. So somebody that's buying a heavy duty truck it's a business. It's not pleasure. It's a necessary part of his business, is that he has to make deliveries of the product that he has, but they have to buy the truck.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing on the agriculture. Well, the guy, in order to plant, he's got to buy tractors, he's got to harvest it, he's got to have combines, he's got to have an incredible amount of equipment, depending on what the products that he is, what he's raising. So the similarities were, it just cascaded over from the heavy duty truck until we got into the farm. Probably the biggest thing that we noticed is then how your market changes. So truck is very mobile, all right? So we learned, and the dealers learned by us, by having multiple states that they could run in, that these guys would not think anything about driving 200 or 300 miles to go buy something, right? Where they're all thinking about just in their own little marketplaces, right? And then they found out that their marketplace was a lot bigger. And that was the other niche that we opened up for the ag side. They really, when I first went in back in the 80s, they all thought, we're about a 25-mile, 30-mile radius from our dealerships. And we opened their eyes to the fact that it was a lot bigger than that.
Yeah. One thing I love about auto, and we just talked about spying other good ideas, right? Mm-hmm. Other industries. So you've got the auto industry that currently, and rightfully so, is paying attention to the Amazons of the world, right? Because especially with the COVID stuff going on, they realize their digital retailing and their online presence, and being able to take a deal from research to actual buy online is important, and that's clearly the direction it's going.
Absolutely.
No one does it better than Amazon.
Yeah.
So from a marketing standpoint and just execution. Yeah. And so, but from the auto industry.
And who would have thought the guy was dealing in books?
Yeah. Started off something simple and small, and then just exploded it up. Yeah. And now wants to do everything. Yeah. So just so you know, this is a true story too, what I'm about to say. Yeah. So we never had the toilet paper shortage issue in our house because we were on the Amazon automatic thing. Yeah. Well, we just got notification they canceled that. Really? They have created their own toilet paper and will not sell. If you want the subscription and automatic delivery, you have to buy theirs. The Charmans and all the other stuff that are out. So their business, they're looking to gobble up everything. But where I was going with this was the auto industry is great. So we have a lot of people that watch or listen to the show that aren't necessarily in auto. Yeah. And so I always worry that they sit there and think, why do you have so much auto? Why do you have so many auto guests on there, right? And one of the reasons is the auto industry does an incredible job. So, and you're an example of it. Mm-hmm. So here you are selling to dealers. When you're in the auto industry, it doesn't matter if you're selling to consumers or selling to the dealers. Right. You understand what selling really is. Mm-hmm. It is a real sales world. If you're selling cars, not only are you selling the car, but you're also selling the person that's trading the car on why their car is not as valuable as they probably think it is. The sales are going all nonstop, and that industry understands very well the importance of when a person is ready to buy, to make sure you ask for the deal.
Yes.
They're also very good because their margins have been shrinking over the years. They've had a lot of pressure, and the internet has accelerated that, and the marketplace is trying to commoditize them.
Yes.
That they are very good at the follow-up. In other words, I'm willing to get a customer at a low margin because I'm also going to upsell and cross-sell this, and this, and then I'm getting all this service business too. So what dealers are doing a good job now is understanding it's not about this initial sale. No. It is about the lifetime value of that customer and what that brings. And I think a lot of people outside of auto, some do it well, but that's where they could learn from auto the most.
Yes.
And so, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think you're dead on. I think one of the things that, people, it's the second largest expenditure that anybody has. I mean, a home is their first and the auto is their second. Right? Yeah.
With the exception of who your clients are selling to.
Well, but that's, the car is something that is not necessarily of a necessity. It's not part of their work.
Right.
They might need it for driving. But the reality is that I think that's something that the automotive is they've always been kind of elite. They've had very sharp marketing people, out there, always out there, and I always remind people, I says, why is it that dealers are so hard to deal with? And I go, what are they called? Dealers. Their life is made up of dealing. You don't walk into their store like a Walmart, and okay, I'm going to pick these off the shelf and then I'm going to check out. Yeah. You enter into deal making. So the earliest really goes back to we'll pick up from our agricultural lines is horse trading. Yeah. So it was first about my horse is worth this, this is worth this much, which is still going on today. By the way, this is the Derby week. Yeah. So there's some pretty expensive horses are going to be out there. Yep. So you go from that to where we are. I think where we are today, and yes, you bring up the internet is trying to commoditize things, and you'll get commoditized as to the level that your product can be. Yep. Right. So if there's research that can be done, if somebody can do a video on it, it's going to be out there. You better embrace it and figure out how to use it. Yes. I think is one of the keys. One of our elements when we sit down with a client is we're always trying to find, call it use. What's your UCE, your unique competitive edge. Yep. And the problem is that most people don't want to sit down and go through that exercise. I make this product, I got this, we're going to go out here. A dealership can sit back and says, hey, a person, they can go buy, I can buy a Chevy, I can buy an Audi from any one of those particular dealers. I says, well, in today's marketplace, though, you have to figure out how you stand out. What are the things that you're going to be doing differently? And you brought out some of those is where they know that there's add-ons that they can do, right. Service in that. And then I think that's the other piece of it is that for people to get an understanding that what's that life expenditure of the customer, yep. And we get in and it's very difficult. We all have these problems with sales reps that get focused and, you're like, we're there for the long haul, so stop just thinking about this. What can we do to expand their marketplace? I think that's always going to be one of the keys. Yeah.
And so, you're now obviously not just doing catalogs, right? It's a full shift. Yeah. And I think, but that's another great example. And I don't know which came first. And so I'll ask you. So obviously there's all kinds of third-party lead providers for the auto industry. Yeah. Cars.com. Yeah. Auto Trader and things such as that. You have a similar product for the ag world, right? How did you come up with that?
Actually, I was in a business group that had a local software company, and we were getting in conversations about the internet. And, prior to Al Gore claiming that he invented the internet, we actually kind of realized that, wait a minute, this is it's another venue. So you have print, you have radio, you have television, now you have the internet.
Right.
All right. So you have 4 mediums that you can reach your client with. So, I was an early adopter because of and once again, because I was in the computer sales of the automotive world, I was way more oriented to be realizing what a computer could do than somebody else that didn't. So
that's a great point.
And believe me, I mean, if I could steer one of my kids and, I would go over there and work for Reynolds or work for somebody that sells a system into a business, because you'll then understand that business that much better.
Yeah. And
it will give you insights down the line. So that's been the part that, that we've really tried to carry forward. And, like I've taken, there's been dealerships, there's always somebody in a dealership that probably has a little better marketing mind than another.
Yeah.
And one that I went into was had to have been, I think it was a service manager, I'm giving him credit for it, was he had the sign and it says, "You sell them the first time, we sell them every time after." And that was the doorway walking into the service department.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was dead on.
True. This third time you've brought this up, and it's been brought up on multiple podcasts, multiple episodes that we've done. The importance of understanding your product or your industry, your advantages, your disadvantages, what your customer wants.
Yes.
More than anybody else.
Yeah.
Right? And that has come up with, I've interviewed Corky Taylor, you probably know him from Peerless, Tom Bullitt. All these guys, they've all said that. And so, does that come naturally to you, or is that why are you motivated to understand this so much?
There is
to know it better.
I'm not going to say, there's a part of it I feel like I got a natural ear for marketing. In other words, if we sat down and had a conversation, I would end up picking out something in the conversation and go, "That's your difference. That's what you got to hit at." I mean, I've literally stopped people when, not just in my industry, but when we got talking about somebody in a business, and I go, that's the difference. That's your differentiator right there.
Yep.
All right. And so, but that's come about. I learned that I needed to read. I was, as an entrepreneur, there wasn't anybody, it was me literally in my kitchen and then in a 1-room office. And, so I had to read. I remember subscribing to Harvard Business Review, going back, when I was first starting, within probably the first year, because there was just a wealth of information that would come across there, picking up different books. 20 years later, I got into Vistage. I had a 20-year career with the Vistage, and that was huge in really helping mold the company, moving forward.
Who was were you one of the facilitators?
No.
Right.
Bill Houston was.
Okay.
He was the first Vistage group here in Louisville.
All right, I'm going to give a shout out to Melissa Frazier.
Oh.
So, do you know Melissa?
She's been at the big group ones that will be coming up here, as a matter of fact, next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there's something else you said, and I forget the exact way you phrased it. I've heard it called unique selling proposition.
Yeah.
This episode that we're talking about and we're about to dive into right now is all about increasing value, your value proposition, right? And that's what it is. You referred to it as...
I refer to it as use. So, it's always easier to try to get an acronym, but it's use spelled UCE.
Right.
What is your unique competitive edge?
Correct.
All right. So when somebody sits back and they always want to be focusing on the sale, you may forget about what your competitive edge is. And so that's the piece, is that what's the thing that will set you apart from what your competition is? Yeah. So I recently, it was one of these things that just kind of came to me. I said, so what is the first step in sales? Marketing.
Yep.
What's the first step in marketing? Data.
Yep.
Research. All right. So the problem is that that people aren't always willing to do the research, put the effort in to learn then how to go about and to sell. So I was told him, I said, I looked at Kentucky before moving down here, and I had no fear of failing. I knew there were enough dealers in this state to make the publication successful.
Right.
And then in every state that we went, we would always take a look at, and as we got in, now we're totally over on the farm, we would take a look to see what the registration is for farmers, how many farmers are in the state, and that's going to tell you there's going to be enough dealers that you're going to be able to produce a product.
Right.
Okay. So I think, that would come into play in no matter what product line that you were going to do. If you have a product that you were going to sell to dealers in your parts house, you'd want to know, okay, how many dealers are even potentially going to be willing to buy something other than from the OEM?
Yep.
Okay.
What are some of the early roadblocks or challenges you faced? And that could be, one that stands out to you, whether it's when you were doing the magazines and the publications, or even as you transitioned into the internet. And then how'd you overcome?
The first things really were, COVID has definitely got a lot of folks about working from home, and people going, are you going to be comfortable with that? I said, my company was built on people working from their homes. So we hired sales reps in these states that had to go out and cover it. Yep. We didn't have them here and fly out. They had to live there. So one of our challenges we had was, how do you decide to rest your future on somebody's shoulders in a very short period of time? Like, you might have 2 hours worth of interview with them. So I was fortunate early on in our career to learn about some of the personality profile test.
Okay.
So we used, because we had to try to gain an advantage besides what somebody could put on in front of us. So we had two things. We always made sure we interviewed somebody.
Which one do you use?
I use two.
Okay.
All right. I use PI.
All right.
But the one that I use that I've been using for over 30 years, I've been using handwriting analysis. So one of the most renowned handwriting analysts is located here in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's called Uvista. And we have been a user of that for over 30 some years, and why we did it, there was an article about it in Business First going back probably 34 years ago.
Yeah. And
we had been using another resource, and we decided that they might have been raising their prices or something, and so let's look for something different. And they did this article on it, and I'm like, okay, let's give that a shot. And so it was a pretty interesting story, because remember, roommate from college?
Yeah.
Roommate from college. We wrote a paragraph out, said, here, you write this paragraph out. Doesn't say anything about you, just copy this, and then I'll come in. She walked in and told us about each other. And we were roommates for all 4 years. Yeah. And I looked over at him, and when he disagreed, I says, oh, no, you are. and when she do the other, she goes, oh, no, you are. And I'm like, she walked out. His first thing was, she's the voodoo lady. That was it. So it's proven out to be very successful. So learning when you're going to do something that's very different, which, and when you decide if your business leads you to having to hire folks that are not under your roof, you have to find different things. Then from there, the internet has definitely changed the whole venue. It's changed the paradigm of marketing, because number one, it opened up to worldwide, where our catalogs were very specific and we could walk in and say, we're just going here. When you post on the internet, you're hoping that only these people are going, but anybody can go on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. I know you just brought up Vistage. All right. So were there any early mentors that you relied on or leaned on?
Well, my Vistage chair, Bill Houston, because part of your thing at Vistage is you've got that monthly sit down and hold you accountable. Yeah. But I've always seen that said, what were your mentors? Well, I think as typical of most is my dad was in the business, my grandfather was in the business. I saw them, but I left the family business pretty early. So I only had about 2.5 years, under my father's tutelage. But there were a couple things that I picked up certainly from him, and because he sold advertising as well, for their publication. So I think so you have that, and then it's really I had some various customers that seemed to kind of I was younger, and so they kind of they said, hey, we like what you're doing. This really seems like it's good. Have you sat down and had that conversation? So I try to do the same thing now. If there's another entrepreneur, they've always got they always have time. I'll make time for them and try to go over, because some people made time for me, in those early stages. The thing about the Vistage that I think was really strong. Literally, I think it was one of my number one. The first session, it was a guy that talked about my health. The very first session changed my life, and it was about he put it this way: the health of your company rests squarely on the health of you. Yeah. And I was like, holy mackerel.
Well,
right.
Physically, it messes with you mentally.
Yes.
So
yeah. So I changed my diet, and started exercising from that day. And as literally this morning when I went out, I was doing the exact same exercise I did 20 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah. So
do you do it as well?
Huh?
Do you do the exercise as well as you did 20 years ago?
No.
Neither do I.
No. my counts are still the same, but I don't do any running in between. Yeah.
What was the first major breakthrough for Fastline? What I mean by that is for the value proposition and we'll put it in your terms, your unique competitive edge for Fastline. What was that first breakthrough? You're like, aha, that aha moment came up in your head and you said, that's our advantage right there. There's our edge.
Direct. Precision marketing.
Okay.
All right. So our real unique thing is that we were walking in and we were only going to the people to buy.
Yep.
So there were competitors out there that on the truck side that might leave publications at a truck stop.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bunch of drivers.
Yeah.
All right. All they can do is waste your time.
Yeah.
All right. And that was the same thing dealing on the farm. So for the farm, we took we were able to get with the Department of Ag, and we were very specific and said we want 100 acres and above, because that's somebody that back then that was a little more. It wasn't a hobby farm. It was a financial commitment they had. All right, because it was a pretty substantial amount of money would be invested to have 100 acres of land.
Yeah.
All right, so we were very targeted, and so that when we walked in, we would sit down and talk to a client. We would say, if you're interested in selling to people that are, pretty obvious, if this guy's selling a Mack truck, we got him on our list. But we don't have the drivers. We are only going to the people that own the trucks. So we go only to the owners of the trucks, and we go only to the farmers. And those were our two specifics. It's very precision marketing.
Yeah. It's funny when you think of farming, I don't know if the general population fully grasps what it takes to run a big farm in the sense of all this equipment. But let's just take something as simple as when gas goes up $1, you and I are like complaining because it costs us an extra $20 a week or whatever to go from here to there.
Yeah.
Try run a 100-acre farm.
Yeah.
Or some huge
1,000
acre, these things where they're just relying on gas that's a major cost to their business.
And the fact of it is that they're dealing in commodities.
Yeah.
All right. So they don't get to set the price.
Correct.
No matter how good they grow, all they can do is get maybe more bushels per acre than somebody else. All right. So, and anybody can go and look up and you can see what corn's selling for, bushel now, or soybeans or cotton. Those are all commodities.
Yes.
So they deal in a commodity. So their only advantages are is how do I gain more out of an acre of ground than the next guy?
Right.
All right. And they were way ahead of a lot of other businesses computer-wise, in the early stages. The dairy business, they're huge challenges for them, but they are growing. But they're getting bigger.
Yeah. All
right. So acquisitions, you very well may be in businesses and you have been, it's like, see it happen. Okay. So automotive dealers, when I was calling on them, I was calling on single store operations. Maybe somebody might had 4 or 5. Now you've got massive groups. We've got the same thing over in the agriculture.
Yep.
So we've seen incredible, which is a challenge. Since 2011, the number of stores from 15 to 20 branches grew 360%. Wow. From 20 and over, 300% in that same timeline. Mm-hmm. So and then you've got where's it coming from? Then you got the minuses down. For those that are below 5 or below, they're the ones that they're getting gobbled up because of the efficiency of size.
When you go into these business leaders and you go in and you've got a great marketing mind, and does it shock you the percentage of people that understand the importance, or forget the importance, does it shock you the amount of people that do not know what their unique competitive edge is?
It definitely did in the early stages, but it doesn't now.
Yeah.
It's just, it's kind of like one of those things that we don't stop and always think about. Everybody gets really busy going in their arena, and I sit back and I go, gee, many Christmas. I said, if they would just put a little bit more time in the marketing. I mean, you deal with automotive guys, and they'll hand stuff over to auctions, or they got somebody that comes through, and you go, let us market it a little bit for you. Let's do a little bit of extra stuff here. I think we can get you a better return rather than you're willing to take that loss. Well, it's the same way over on the ag. These guys will hit the point where they'll put all their stuff on auction, and I was with a dealer, and he was that night watching his phone, and I said, what's going on? He says, I got an auction tomorrow, and I'm hoping I only lose $3 million. And I'm like, I didn't sleep all that night. I mean, it was like, we didn't do something. We should have been in contact with this guy. There's no way that you should be sitting back there with that.
That's awful.
It's awful. But it's not unheard of.
When COVID hit, initially, first 15, 20 days, used car prices tanked.
Oh, awful.
And so a lot of dealers were out there, there's always the panic, prepare, don't panic, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of panic happened, and people were just making the problem worse because they're dumping their used cars. I got to get these out of my inventory. I can't own these things for this. I'm going to lose every time I sell a car. So my stores, we took the opposite approach. Mm-hmm. So used cars are something, and this goes to the marketing end that you're talking about. Used cars is something that is always a challenge. How do I get more of them, especially the right ones?
Yes.
And so we said, we're going to retail our way out. We're going to market effectively. Mm-hmm. After that first 20, 30 days and those prices stabilize, well, now nobody can get them.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah. So they don't make used vehicles, that's probably. No.
That's correct. And so that turned out very well, but it goes right to what you're saying. There is a better way, and then usually marketing is a solution I think more people need to look at. Let's switch gears though.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you an opportunity to talk about things that I think every business leader wishes they could do, and that is go back in time and do it again. What would you do differently? What would you do better? What would you do the same, right? So if you had to start all over again with Fastline, all right? If you had to start all over again with the value specific, because we want this episode to be about the value proposition.
Yeah.
So with the value proposition, what would you do differently? And by the way, I'm gonna ask you, what would you do more of?
Yeah. I mean, differently. When I go back and take a look at it, I wouldn't. I'm happy to tell you, I wouldn't do anything differently.
Nice.
Building it, getting it up to this point.
I'm talking about not the company, but your actual, in terms of you can shape your unique competitive edge, knowing what you know now.
Yeah.
Is there anything you do different?
Not in those first years.
Okay.
Because we really had it going. I think one of the other things that as we actually got, I'm going to call the country covered.
Yeah.
Okay. Which was probably back in about 96. Is that we didn't start taking a look on how we could connect the buyers to the sellers better.
Yep.
At that point, we were totally dependent upon somebody picking up the phone and saying, I saw it in Fastline, okay? And if you've been around any dealerships, they go, well, all our guys always ask. I have been around those dealerships, and they don't ask. It's the last thing in their mind is that I want to find out why. And the other part of it is, it's the last thing the consumer wants to do. They're not really, they just want to come in and buy. They don't want to be part of your marketing plan.
Right.
You have to do the homework.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the problem. Everybody wants to make it easy. So where I've definitely got a timeline where I said what I would be doing differently.
Especially the customer.
Yeah.
What would you do more of?
Well, when we hit, I'm going to call our heyday, which was like probably 2012 to 2014, because ag did not take the setback. We took a setback in 2008, but not near the level as a lot of, like, especially automotive.
Auto took
got
a big setback.
Slammed.
Yep.
Huge. Took them a long time to get themselves back. We didn't hit that. We were still going along. The not making the investments in understanding the how sophisticated digital marketing was getting was that is me. I would have been taking a lot of money off of the table now and going back then and said, okay, we have definitely got to get heavy over in this side of things.
Yep.
Because of connectivity.
Yep. What would you have done faster, or tried to have done faster? It's not always easy to do.
Well, faster would have been actually, digging in deeper into our own searchable database that we had.
Okay.
We were one of the first to have a searchable database, and we quite frankly, we didn't keep our eye on the ball there. The catalog was the generator of revenue, and what we weren't seeing was that the connectivity between the two. I really wish that I wish I would have had that person in the company that had a little more insight, maybe a little bit more maverick in them.
Yep.
About going off and say, hey, come on, I think we need to pull $1 million off, and let's go do it over here.
That's right.
That's what I would have liked to have.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing because I think there are a lot of businesses and business leaders out there. I'll put myself in that boat, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a kind of a similar path in the sense that we did a lot of print early to the point, and we did it well at J&L, to the point when we did our pivot to digital.
Yeah.
If I had to do it over, I may have started a completely separate agency that was 100% digital, because looking back, I feel like the J&L brand, we did something so well in this niche that we weren't known for it. Almost hurt us.
We're mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, our catalog is that our guy walks in and they're thinking catalog, they're not thinking digital, and getting that transformation is very, very difficult.
Correct.
So that's why I said I would have loved to had gotten ourselves more focused so that your sales reps, you want to make sure your sales reps are always out there and to, be on that cutting edge. And the other part of it is that, we also probably didn't put the money, reward for the sales rep to get out there and do more on that digital. All they saw, the easiest way to money was sell the catalog.
Yep.
The easiest way was, okay, we can sell direct mail and we can sell events. All right. And it's, and they're clicking.
So let's talk a little bit about this, right? All right. So here you are making this shift. And a lot of us, when it's time to pivot, it's hard to fully commit to this because here's your core.
Yeah.
This is where your money's coming, right? And it's coming from this one avenue. You've got to go into this direction.
Yeah.
So now let's just talk about that for a second. Mm-hmm. What would you have done differently from that transition to make the internet and stuff like that come to you quicker, faster? What would have, I look back at our early struggles, right, with that pivot, and I think I would have come up with a completely different team. If I was going to keep one company, I would have had a team that was just dedicated on that instead of this half in, half out, because our sales reps, they didn't have to go learn this the way I really needed them to.
Yes.
Yes,
I think that's a challenge that all the businesses are going to face because there's never it just stops and go.
Correct.
So it's not like there's a huge amount of companies that their magazine was more editorial content, and they're gone. They're no longer there because the internet replaced that need, all of those resources. But one of the reasons why I feel good that we're in the catalog business is because that still has a prevalence, but it's definitely changed. So yes, getting your, and I thought, it's one thing. We would have classes and, to try to teach our people, these are the kind of conversations. But, that's another part about understanding your market. We were really a little bit too much on the bleeding edge. The agricultural industry is, I always said it was about 4 years behind automotive.
Yeah.
Felt truck was about 2, and so they're thinking. And so these guys are out there. They're not, we still got 40% of the population that doesn't have that connectivity. So you still
The
got.
internet doesn't help you there.
Yeah, the internet doesn't help you there. So I think there wasn't like, okay, I'm going to go start this. I've looked at that. I've had those same thoughts. If you were going to start over again, what would you do? I said, if I had to start over today in this marketplace, it would be completely different. But I think it would be way more challenging because you're competing with anybody that can have a computer in their garage.
Correct.
And I can do SEO and SEM better than this other guy.
Correct.
Or I can understand this. Well, they're piping those out by the thousands coming out of school, right? But do you understand marketing though?
Yeah, from a marketing standpoint, it's outstanding because we can adjust on the dime.
Yes.
You've got money being spent trying to do this. You can look at it and see, all right, well, that's not working. I either need to write better ads or change my budget and maybe go over here where it's working better. We can maneuver the budget around. We don't have to wait for the end of the month to say, did it work?
No.
And then struggle to find out what part did and what didn't. We know exactly what's working and not. And
that's probably one of our biggest challenges today in business is that just even like what you described was almost like we want it now. Right? So one of the elements about marketing is that it takes time. I mean, when the person walks in and buys, we think that they just bought it right then. And nobody has really spent that time to say, or to sit down and say, when did you start looking? When was your first moment of research? So that's the reason why you're looking at SEO and SEM situations, because we know that they're doing research and they're still doing research months before they make the purchase. So I'm a car guy, and so I mean I read my Car and Driver is mine, and that's where they'll tease me, and I'll see, oh, that looks pretty cool, and then you read the stories, and then you read, it's pitted against something else, and you go, okay, well, good, I think I like this better, and but when I walk in that dealership, they had no clue. As a matter of fact, when I went into Toyota, and when we bought that vehicle, it was. There wasn't anybody said, hey, how did you learn about us? I mean, I knew the owner, and that was pretty much it. But why did you pick this car? Right. No. If somebody said it, says, well, it goes back a year ago. Is when it all started.
Yeah. Where do you think business leaders should put more of their focus or their efforts if they want to succeed both short and long term today?
You can never skip the step of doing the research of your market. So whatever market you're deciding that you're going to go after.
That's the fourth time you've brought up the importance of understanding.
Yes. Because otherwise, if you're going to think I'm going to go out there and you've got something that you can sell to everybody, I go up and down the street back in the day timeline when maybe you were, every retail business needed a cash register and you could go any place and sell it. But the reality is that specialization has really kind of come in more. So the more focused that I think that you can be, and then you have to then get really good at that area you decide to focus on.
So building a strong competitive edge, unique selling proposition, a value proposition, it's both real and then some can be perceived, right?
Yes.
So you've got a market, right? And you've got real value here, and then some of that value is just what the customer perceives it to be. Yes. Which is important.
Yes.
And so we're trying to differentiate our products and our services, right? So where do you see a lot of business leaders wasting time in terms of trying to differentiate themselves?
Well, I think it's more so when they haven't really looked hard at their business and the competitors. Yeah. All right. So if you,
So it goes back to knowing the industry.
you got to know the industry. And part of knowing the industry is knowing who's out there. I mean, if I'd have walked out, as I said, to walk out there right now to do a digital agency, there's just a plethora of them out there. Yeah. Now, how could you differentiate yourself? Well, you say, well, I'm going to be this, but I'm only going to specialize in this particular field. I'm going to be after the automotive. Then you're going to need to learn that automotive world better than anybody else. All right. If somebody is sitting back and I just saw a food truck drive by here, and somebody goes, well, I'm going to be a producer. I'm going to deliver food. Well, to who? Who is going to be, what market do you think you have an opening for?
Right.
And so I think that's the piece that we get maybe a brainstorm, but we don't carry it out. And I'm guilty of that as
we all
admit my guilt,
yeah.
On that end of it. I in the early stages, I definitely ended up having to learn that I do better business to business. I tried a business to consumer, which was horses. Yeah. Because I'm in Kentucky, they don't lie. Trust me, not at all.
By the way, I like your bourbon. You picked a good bourbon.
Thank you. It is the only private barrel of Eagle Rare that was done in 2018.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's very good.
And
we had a good day the other
flavors.
day, and we opened it up.
Oh, yeah. I got another bottle I could probably swing that.
All right. So, what final thoughts do you have to help motivate entrepreneurs, business leaders out there who maybe they want to recognize and identify what their unique competitive edge is or their value proposition or improve on it? What advice would you give them to take them to the next level?
I think you have to have a term now that's kind of make sure you got the grit to do it, because if you're not willing to suffer,
yep.
and you're going to suffer. You're going to have timelines where people are going to question you. You're going to question yourself, and you have to have that belief in what you're doing more so than anybody else. You cannot hire that belief. All right.
Yep.
Entrepreneurs never believe. It's one of the early studies I did. Was in finding out entrepreneurs are not risk takers, and that was totally contrary to what most people think. And then when I read the article, I was like, "Oh, you're absolutely right." I had no question that I was going to be successful. I mean, it was like, "I'm coming down. We're going to do this." Was that I have nervous and a little thing, but yes, I did. But the reality is that I felt very strongly about it. So I think, if you don't have that, if you don't really feel like you got that belief, either you continue to do your research to build your belief, because, faith is based upon reading and gaining insights. So if you have hesitation, figure a resource that you can go to learn more about it, so that you can then really try to say, okay, this is how I'm going to make myself different.
Yeah. I'm glad you went to the beliefs, because I'm a big believer in empowering and limiting beliefs. And
yes.
So, when you come from a place of where you limit yourself, your belief is maybe you're not confident or whatever else. And if you're in sales or just a business leader, it really reduces the amount of effort or activity you put in, because you kind of have this hidden belief, this limiting belief that says, this is not going to succeed or not do what I think or it could fail.
Yeah.
And so you put out, that's when people put out half the activity that they probably should be doing, if that, not probably 10% of it, which then produces poor results.
Yes.
Which reinforces the negative. It's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
Yet all the successful people, and this has come up too, because the first step to not being pushed into this, what I call painted into this commodity corner, is first believing you're not a commodity.
Yes.
Which is an empowering belief in itself, because if you believe you are, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And you start behaving and acting, and your product's not worth what it should be. You limit yourself on other things you could add to the table to bring more value to it. But when you come from this strong belief, like you mentioned, right? Think about the things that we all have limiting beliefs, we all have empowering beliefs. But when you think about your activity level and the things that we really believe in, that we have confidence in, it's so much stronger. We do, we're not afraid to fail. We call more, we prospect more, we do whatever, right?
Yes.
The results show, which reinforces so you can take this spiral in either direction.
Yes. Well, it can either be a spiral down or or doing a spiral up.
And so a lot of people start with the result instead of the belief.
Yeah.
And it's really the belief has got to be where the starting point is.
So when you think of that, the tough part is that, the spiral, which somebody usually may think of as in a cone shape.
Yeah.
The cone shape, it's faster and easier to go down than what it is to climb up. It's just a matter of physics.
Yeah.
So to go up, when you decide you're going to go up, you have to have an understanding it's going to be more difficult, because it's a lot easier to just give up and go. So I think for leaders, one of their key things that they need to be very diligent on is wordsmithing. Right? So I learned this a long time ago. I said, every manager, every president, anybody in leadership, they have a wake. And I'm a boat guy, so I understand that. So, and words that you say impact people greater than what you think sometimes. So it's always really important to really be thinking about, what the words are. And it's equally as important to think about every day when you walk in, and somebody says, "How are you?" For you to go, "Okay," probably doesn't set the tone.
Yeah. But
if you go in and my word is marvelous.
Yeah.
Took it from Billy Crystal. Marvelous. Yeah. And sometimes I put that little accent in there at the same time as well. So I think that's one of the keys.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Bill, for an absolutely great interview. I am confident that the business leaders out there learned a lot. Hopefully they start thinking about their value proposition, and I'll put it in your term, their unique competitive edge.
Yeah.
So again, I want to thank you for sharing your experience, your expertise on this. I know that you're extremely successful, and so the audience out there, give us feedback. Join us on Facebook. Get into the groups, and I'm going to ask you, make sure you join our Facebook group, because I always tell them that everyone's on here. If they can shoot you questions, you can help them out. So
I'll be glad to.
Get into our Facebook group. We're on LinkedIn. You can follow us on Twitter. Obviously, subscribe to YouTube and to move.crush.count.com. I should never get that one messed up.
Yeah, you got to think about your phonetics.
But also, I want you to visit Bill's company. So he practices what he preaches. You can go to FastlineMediaGroup.com, but then you've also got, hey, if you're in the market for something, Fastline.
Fastline.com is really that really is our website. Our media group was really kind of talk a little bit about us.
Yep.
But what we spend money with you on is Fastline.com.
Yeah, that's your product. That's your service.
Product.
That's what you're selling.
That's our connecting buyers to sellers.
Right. So if you want to see what the tool that we talked about and how he's connecting buyers to sellers, you go to Fastline.com.
Yeah.
Little history on you go to FastlineMediaGroup.com.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So follow us all, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.